Hello and welcome to my second Bantams debrief, while I talk about some Bradford City talking points while watching outtakes from the FM24 series where I am in the boots of Graham Alexander. And the first thing that I want to focus on is an article that's written by Simon Parker for the Telegraph and Argus, where he interviewed Bradford City manager Graham Alexander, asking him about the situation with Tyreik Wright and focusing on the fact that a number of Bradford City fans have been viewing this signing as more of a Ryan Sparks PR coup than a signing done for football reasons alone. And the headline is the key. It rubbishes that, and it says, Alexander rubbishes claims he's told who to sign. Now, this headline itself is a little bit misleading because that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is this signing has been thought up by Ryan Sparks for PR reasons, not football reasons. And which do you believe more? Do you believe that Graham Alexander has gone to Ryan Sparks and Stephen Gent and says, you know something, I know I've been trying to get rid of wingers because we're overloaded with them, but now I've decided what I really need is another winger. You know something, that lad who played for you a year ago went to Plymouth, I fancy having him back. Can you go out and get him? Or do you think it's more likely that Ryan Sparks has said to Stephen Gent, let's see about if we can get Tyreik Wright back at the club, have a word and see what we can find out about that. And then Stephen Gent has gone to Graham Alexander with Tyreik Wright's name and says, well, we can get this lad for you. He used to play for us, did really well before, and he's watched him on video and shown him whatever he shows him, and he goes, yeah, he sounds like quite the guy. And if you're like me, and you're the type of person that reads the bits that are in the quotey bits in articles rather than just what's in the headline, you'll see Graham Alexander actually says as much. And considering we've gone to such pains to try and get rid of Verdane Oliver, something I'll come on to in a minute, because there is a direct contradiction in the very next article by Simon Parker that suggests that we're not getting the whole truth again, which we're getting used to with Bradford City. Let me just go into this article first. So, Graham Alexander insisted he's his own man as City boss, rubbishing any suggestions that he's been told who to sign. Like I say, we're not saying he's been told who to sign. We're saying that when you've been given one option and had it suggested to you, this has not been done just because he's an excellent player, but because he's going to take some of the heat off of Ryan Sparks at what is a difficult transfer window where big names are likely to go out. It says Tyreik Wright's Valley Parade return on loan from Plymouth this week has excited fans and teammates, which is again all part of that PR thing. That's the idea. Takes the heat off of issues that are going on with players that are outgoing. But some have tried to claim that the deal was decided by Chief Executive Ryan Sparks and Head of Recruitment Stephen Gent. Again, take massive issue with that because it isn't. What we're saying is Ryan Sparks probably thought of the idea because he'd be good to get fans back on side. Stephen Gent's gone out looking to see what the situation is with him and has then presented that to Graham Alexander. Graham Alexander has looked and gone, yeah, he seems a good player. Yeah, if you can get him, get him. I wonder if anybody told him how much he was going to be costing, whether he'd have wanted that, because we've got players like Brad Halliday, whose contract is expiring at the end of the season, who maybe we could use some of that money to get him tied down to a new 2-year contract so he's not out of contract in the summer and available for free. And the same goes for Bobby Poynton. Give him an extended deal. Now, I'm not saying he should or shouldn't do. What I'm saying is there are a number of other issues with the budget that Graham Alexander will surely need to take into consideration, especially when you've already got a number of players to fill the role Tyreik Wright would be coming in to fill. I'm not saying he isn't a good player, but what I am saying is when we start losing players in the summer that we perhaps could have tied up on contracts by January and not had to leave it till the last minute, maybe more people will start to realise that maybe there's a reason we didn't get it done in January. Maybe there wasn't the money left over to do things like that. Would you prefer Jake Young to have been offered a contract that would be good enough to tempt him to stay? The thing is with budgets is that it isn't infinite, and sometimes you have to make these kind of choices. And that's the problem we have with the Tyreik Wright signing. Not that he's a bad player, or he won't win us games, but you could make the same argument about offering a new contract to Jake Young. Are we putting all our eggs in the one Tyreik Wright basket when we might have been better off getting other deals done? Now, if you're told how much it's going to cost a week, you might have second thoughts and go, well, can we get somebody a bit cheaper than that who'd be able to do a good job and use what's left over to be able to offer to Jake Young to stay, or maybe sort out the contract with Brad Halliday? Anyway, I'll carry on and just comment on the bits that stand out. Alexander, though, has left that off and stressed he has the final say with any player. Well, of course he has the final say. This isn't about having the final say. This is about who brought it up, who came to who. If it is Ryan Sparks coming up with players to sign, then you have to question that, as he's not really a football man. You want football men doing that. If it's Stephen Gent, maybe that's his job. It's not so bad, but it's seeming like two people were behind this. He said it would be impossible if all the recruitment was left to me on my own, as well as managing the team and taking training. Absolutely fine. Again, that's why you have a head of recruitment there in Stephen Gent. You tell him what type of players you're looking for in what positions. He goes out and finds those players and then comes back to you. I've got X player here in this position, what do you think of him? He can have a watch of him nowadays on YouTube or wherever. He then goes, yeah, he looks a good prospect, let's go for him. And that's what happens. We do understand there is working together on this involved, but Stephen Gent will go out and find players that are to Graham Alexander's needs, such as certain positions that need filling, and he'll have a list of players that he's found, come back to Graham Alexander, and Alexander will go, yeah, I like that guy, let's get him in, or no, I don't like that guy, no, not in a million years. So he has the final say, absolutely. But again, the key is, it's when Ryan Sparks is going, how about Tyreik Wright, when we might not necessarily need him, but Graham Alexander then goes, yeah, he looks like good, he'll be good for that position. If I need anybody in that position, give him a call. He said, it's why we have a team of people that work for the same thing, but it's me that picks a team. It's me who says, that's a good player. This is the profile we like. This is what we need. Exactly. And again, it's what I just explained. Although we have to ask, would it really be to Graham Alexander a priority to get somebody in that position through the door? This is my point. Yes, of course. Does it fit your profile? Well, yes, it does if I'm looking for a winger and then they've gone off and signed him. But this is my point. Maybe there's been sort of a want to push this one, which is more than just footballing reasons, and it's come from Ryan Sparks. Anyway, I'll continue. This is why I'm here. I'm here to pick the team, manage the team, and use my so-called football expertise to do the right things. I explained it's quite clearly what I was looking for. They didn't say, right, you've got him. They suggested they've got this player, and this is key here. Pay attention to this bit. They suggested, I'm going to put that in big capital letters, they suggested. Who is they? This isn't he suggested or Stephen suggested, being Stephen Gent, the head of recruitment, not Ryan Sparks. They suggested, which is Ryan Sparks and Stephen Gent. They suggested they've got this player who is interested in coming back, but does he fit the profile? So we've already established he's interested in coming back. So somebody has been in contact with Tyreik Wright before it ever came to Graham Alexander. They knew straight away, yeah, we've got this guy who's interested in coming back. This proves he wasn't on Graham Alexander's radar to begin with. You've got to ask yourself whether this is Ryan Sparks, PR, and he's the one who says, what about bringing Tyreik Wright back? If that is the case, that is not for football reasons. He shouldn't be doing that job. We complained when Edin Rahic were doing it, and now it would seem Ryan Sparks is doing it. This should be between the head of recruitment and the manager. That's what the head of recruitment is paid to do. What he says is going to have a lot of clout, so when he asks the head of recruitment to see about bringing in Tyreik Wright, that is going to happen, because otherwise he's not doing what Ryan Sparks wants him to do. When you have a boss, you're supposed to do what they want you to do. So if he has a word in your ear and says Tyreik Wright, you'll go out and get Tyreik Wright. As he said here, his own words, buried within an article that says, Alexander rubbishes claims he's told who to sign, but he has certainly been directed that way by somebody who isn't a football man. Two people, as he said, they, so more than one person. Ryan Sparks, we know that's one of them, and we know it will have been Stephen Gent, the other one, have directed him to Tyreik Wright. So it's not rubbishing any suggestions, is it? It's confirming what we already suspected. Ryan Sparks wanted this to happen, and guess what? It's happened. I watched him, knew about him, and said, yes, he does. That's it. So he's watched him, I don't know how long for, no doubt on a laptop, and gone, yeah, that's it. This is not a well thought out decision, is it? I know it happens a lot in the business, watching them on a laptop nowadays to see what they're like. Looks like more of a rushed decision. Do you like him? Yeah, he looks really good. Well, we can get him for you. Oh, go ahead. Maybe Graham Alexander might want to step back next time and go, hang on a minute, how much is it going to cost out of my budget? But bearing in mind, Graham Alexander said that he didn't do budgets. I'll just read the bits in this because it's important anyway, just for the sake of context. I don't know where these things come from, but there's absolutely no issues on that side of things. That's because Simon Parker's asked you the wrong question. The question should have been, was it your idea to sign him? Or, if you're in need of an open question, who was it that brought the idea of Tyreik Wright to you? This article's trying to make it out like fans are talking shit, and they're not. So it carries on anyway. We've got our boundaries. It's quite interesting to use that word. We've got our boundaries. I don't do budgets or things like that. Because I'm going to stop you right here because this is important. I'm going to take you to the next article. This refers as well back to what he said when asked about Harry Lewis and the money from that. He says he doesn't know. And that raised questions about, well, why don't you know about your budget? It gives you an idea of how many players you can bring in. You might be able to get 2 more players in different positions. But yeah, this is where it's interesting. So he said, made it clear that, very clear now, he doesn't do budgets or things like that, apparently. So then we go to this article. He's only on loan, and we've got a good portion of his wage back on that deal until the end of the season. Well, how do you know that? You don't do budgets. That's not your business. Obviously, it's not specific for a centre forward. It could be for any position, but that money is available for us. Question 1, does he know what his wage is? Question 2, if that's the case, and he knows he's a significant percentage of it, that he could get 1 or 2 players with it. You see what I mean about budgets? So on one hand, he's telling us he doesn't do budgets, and on the other hand, he's very much talking about what you need to know about budgets to know how to budget for bringing players in. And he's worked out that I don't need necessarily a striker to replace him with, but I might need a left back or maybe an extra central midfielder. So he needs to know his budget, does Graham Alexander. And he probably does know his budget. Question is, did anybody tell him how much Tyreik Wright was going to take out of his budget? Maybe he didn't know about that. I don't know. I can't be sure. But I'm not sure Graham Alexander would have sanctioned such a move if he did know how much he was taking out of the budget. But that's a massive contradiction there within 2 articles, within hours. So which is it? He knows his budget or he doesn't know his budget? You can't have it both ways. And especially when I'm reading articles where it's pointing the finger at people like me and other fans who have got the concerns about the direction of this club and where it's ended up. And it's made even worse when people like Simon Parker are using what the fans are saying as if it's some kind of butt of a joke. When, even worse than that, in the article, it confirms exactly what we're saying. But the whole narrative about the Bradford City supporters, that seems to be coming from some direction, being deliberately pushed by certain people on social media. The Bradford City current supporters group, whatever it is, they've released their latest minutes, and interesting read again. I will address that in a Bantams debrief of its own because there is quite a few cases in that where once again it sort of paints Bradford City fans in a bad light, really pushing that toxic narrative again some more. This narrative keeps coming, and I will be taking issue with that in a Bantams debrief because when you're talking about abuse directed at various employees of the football club, I would suggest that the club maybe look into the abuse directed out by certain volunteers or maybe employees of the football club who don't seem to have any qualms with bullying and abusing people online whenever Ryan Sparks or Stefan Rupp is talked about in anything less than a complimentary way. It's not necessarily one-sided, that one. So it works both ways, and I think it's about time we had an honest chat about that. It is not good, and it does start to feel like it is actually coming from the club. it's about time the supporters were represented properly rather than just going along with what certain people who are running the football club want them to go along with. Time for change. Maybe it's time to look at the new Independent Supporters Trust that is gaining momentum as well. They do seem like a credible alternative, and it is very important that they stay independent from the club. They're going to need our backing, aren't they, really? What with the transfer window coming to an end soon, there'll be plenty to talk about. It's really hard because I wasn't meaning to do many of these debriefs. It was just supposed to be the odd thing in between my Football Manager series, but there's been a lot to talk about, and one of them things is Simon Parker's interview with Ryan Sparks. Now, I can't deal with it here at the moment. There's not enough time. Also, at the time of speaking, he's only done 3 or 4 parts. I'm not sure what we're on yet. I think we're on part 4. It's Monday. So far, from what I've seen of it, it's a lot of Ryan Sparks blaming Mark Hughes for everything. And as to be expected, Ryan Sparks taking absolutely no responsibility himself for the failures at Bradford City. And, as always seems to be the case when Simon Parker speaks to Ryan Sparks, it ends up being a fluff piece with no real meat on the bone. Loads of questions unanswered still, but I want to wait until all the parts are out before I pass judgment on it. That's just how it looks at the moment, and rightly, a lot of City fans are concerned about that and do have complaints about that. But let's wait until he delivers the final part so we can make a judgment on it. There's a lot of talk on social media already about that. So far, it does seem like a fluff piece, a typical nice easy ride for Ryan Sparks that pretty much is just asking questions that he wants to be asked and giving the answers that he wants people to know, rather than there being any actual probing questions that you tend to hear from the likes of Jamie Rayner and Louis Reynolds on BBC West Yorkshire Sport. Hopefully he'll have upped his game by the end of the week and we'll have a bit of meat on the bone and something to talk about, because I don't like having to say negative things about journalists, but he is paid to do a job. I'm not, so I do feel that supporters and people who are reading these things do have a right to be able to question whether they are actually asking the questions that people who are reading want to hear being asked. I'll leave it there. Let me know in the comments what you think Simon Parker should be asking Ryan Sparks, and hope that he will have asked Ryan Sparks. If you're not already, you can follow me on X at Bantams Online. But if you can take a moment just to hit that like button, because it all helps. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon and you'll be updated as soon as I release a new video. Okay, well, I'm going to just leave it playing out with this match, and I just wanted to thank you for watching. I hope I haven't babbled on for too long. Plenty to come. Look out for the new episode, which is going to be concentrating on the transfer window in Football Manager, and obviously that debrief coming up soon too. Alright, well, thanks for watching, and all that's left to say is I'll catch you later. Bye bye.